Hello, hello. Yep.
Good morning. I'm Dean Sampson. I'm a member of the board, and I'm making announcements this morning. Right after we conclude here, Cedars is supporting the Poulsbo Pride event, and Cedars has a booth there. If you have any questions, Reverend Zachary is one of the key people associated with this event, and it runs from 1 to 5. Thereabouts. Anyway, anytime this afternoon you want to swing by, that would be great. On Tuesday, September 26th, this is a monthly announcement. Last Tuesday of every month, Cedars, in partnership with Kol Shalom Synagogue, hosts and puts on super suppers at the Eagle Harbor Community Church, and we're still looking for volunteers. It starts at, get there about 4:30, and you'll be through about 6:30 or 6, depends on how many people show up, but we always encourage volunteers to learn about that operation. It's a lot of fun. September 27th, there's a meditation at Cedar Center, 5 p.m. October 1st is the Bainbridge North Kitsap CROP Hunger Walk. Starts at Eagle Harbor Congregational Church at 2 p.m. And I've been asked to read this announcement from the Social Justice Committee. The Social Justice Committee wants to thank all 22 people who responded to our recent survey. I hope you will all read the summary in this week's Beacon. Based on your comments, our next steps are to find and create activities and special collections focused on environment and climate change issues, of course, along with food security. We will be in touch with those who agreed to help organize an activity and look forward to broadening our circle of participants. If somebody wants to get involved with this, who do they contact? Okay, there's your contact. And that's it for this morning's announcements. Thank you.
Thanks, Dean. Welcome, everybody. My name is Mike Cox, and I'm your worship associate today with a gravelly voice. And first of all, I want to thank Nick for gracing us with his great music, and for all the folks here who have put this space together. And one more announcement, since we're on the announcement circuit here. On October 4th at Kol Shalom at 7 o'clock, the Interfaith Council Climate Circle is having an event, and it's called Celebrating the Web of Life. It's going to be 7 to 8, and the idea is that we want people to come together from different faiths to talk about what they can do in their congregations, both individually and collectively, on climate change. So you can see something in the Beacon. There's some notices on the back, and it's 7 to 8 Kol Shalom on Wednesday, October 24th. So to start today, I just got done reading Braiding Sweetgrass, which some people will go, duh, that took you long enough to read the thing. But that's okay, I did. And something that I found kind of profound in there was the author, who's a PhD botanist and a member of a particular tribe. She talked about how all of us can remember doing the Pledge of Allegiance, right? You got up and you wrote, put your hand over, and we did what we're supposed to do. In the Onondaga Nation, what the children do is they repeat once a week what they call the words that come before all else. And that's a long thing. So I'm just going to read the very first paragraph of that I found pretty amazing that grade school kids are reading this while we were doing the Pledge of Allegiance. Today we have gathered, and when we look upon the faces around us, we see that the cycles of life continue. We haven't been given the duty to live in balance and harmony with each other and all living things. But now, let us bring our minds together as one, as we give greetings and thanks to each other as people. Now our minds are one. And it goes on with many other verses that are really good. So today, we're here because we have a special guest, Michael Camp. And I met Michael, I'm a Rotarian now, and I met him a little over a year ago. We started chatting, found out he was in Africa for a long time. He was in Malawi. Where's Patricia? Right there. Michael, there's another Malawi person. She was in the place up in the mountains. What's it called? Yeah, Livingstonia. Anyway, so Michael, I listened to his journey, and I said, people got to hear this. This is quite a journey. So I'll just give a summary of Michael. He's a former evangelical missionary, aid worker, and church leader who was in the evangelical movement for greater than 25 years. He lived in Africa for 7 years, Somalia, Kenya, and Malawi. After his missions career, he went to a little bit different business, Microsoft marketing and sales. Today, he's a podcaster, a faith deconstruction coach, which I didn't know what the heck that meant, but now I do after I read his book. Theology nerd, craft beer lover, which I can agree with, a member of the Bainbridge Island Rotary Club, and a bad golfer. Michael's published 3 books: Confessions of a Bible Thumper, Craft Brewed Jesus, and his most recent book, Breaking Bad Faith. And some of his books are in back there. And for maybe you guys are a little more in tune with common culture, but I didn't quite get the Breaking Bad thing until I remembered that it's a show. Okay, so I'm behind. And Michael and his wife Lori reside in Paulsbo. So I want to welcome Michael today to our congregation. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Nick. So, I just got done reading 2 books. Michael's book, of course, and then another one titled You're Not Listening, What You're Missing and Why It Matters by Kate Murphy. And both books really made me think about the importance of listening, especially in the context of our current political, social, cultural things where nobody seems to be listening to anybody else. We're all just yakking. And I reflected and I was asking myself, I was saying, how many times in a conversation am I listening? I'm going to use Fran because I like Fran. No, I'm going to use Reverend Zachary because I could pick on him. How many times am I listening to Reverend Zachary, but the same moment I'm thinking of how I'm going to interject something that is going to impress him? I'm not listening to him. I'm figuring out what I'm going to say before I'm really listening to him. How often do we do that? I do it way too often. And how many times do we interrupt people when they're talking about, let's say they're talking about their trip to France, and I want to get in there and go, well, yeah, I went to France and I went here, here, and here. How many times do we do that? I do it without listening. I'm not listening anymore. I'm trying to get my agenda into them or impress them. Or the one that really bugs me is you're looking at your phone. And when somebody's talking to you and you say, I'm listening, right? Don't worry, I'm listening to you. They're not. I'm not. And on the reverse of that, think about it. When was the last time you really thought somebody listened to you? I mean, truly listened to you and got it? And Kate Murphy, it says in her book, which I thought was pretty profound for me, In modern life, we are encouraged to listen to our hearts, listen to our inner voices, listen to our gut. But rarely are we encouraged to listen carefully and with intent to other people. We're not taught that. At least I wasn't. You're taught to get in there and make sure people know your opinion and yada, yada, yada. And just a couple examples in my life recently that I wanted to share. A while back, my wife came home and she was complaining about her work. And so I started trying to fix it. And there's no kids here, so I can swear a little bit. She said, "Damn it, Mike, I don't want you to fix it. I want you to listen to me." And I go, "Okay, got it." She didn't want it. She just wanted me to listen. And then last week actually, good friend, she's struggling a little bit. And after about 20 minutes in the conversation, she said, "Mike, you're really listening to me. You making me feel seen and heard." And to me, I'll be honest, I was going, wow, that was, for me, pretty profound, because I'd been thinking a lot about this. And that really made me feel good. But Kate concludes her book, Kate Murphy, with this line or this paragraph that I thought was good. She says, "Listening takes effort. Understanding and intimacy must be earned. While people often say, 'I cannot talk right now,' what they really mean is, 'I cannot listen right now.' And for many, it seems they never get around to it, the listening." And then she goes on and says, this is despite of what we all want most in life, to understand and to be understood. But it only happens when we slow down and take the time to listen. So I dedicate the lighting of our chalice to the hope that we can all slow down and take the time to really listen to someone and have the good fortune to have people in our lives that will listen to us. So please join me in our affirmation. Okay, so as we come together to worship, we remind ourselves to treat all people kindly because we are one family. To take good care of the earth because it is our home, and to live lives full of love and goodness because that is how we will all become the best that we can be. And now we have the opening hymn, number 325. I think it is, Alan. And we're doing all 5 verses? Yes. Okay. All 5 verses. Just when I was looking through, and I had never heard that one either, Alan, but when I read Michael's book, love permeated through that. And so I thought, for me, this song was really appropriate. So we're going to do something goofy for Time for All Ages. And I talked to Zachary and I beat him to this. So if he did this when I was gone for a few weeks, you stole my idea. We're going to play UU Jeopardy. So I need 3 people and a scorekeeper. Who wants to play? 5 questions, 3 people. I need 3 people coming up here. Come on, don't be shy. Show your knowledge of UU. Who's doing it? Fran, Dean. Okay, we need 1 more. Come on, somebody be brave. Turn around. No. Oh, yeah. No, I'll tell you, Alan. I'll do it then. Okay, easy. You don't have to. Okay. So can I have can keep score? Just in your head. There's 5 questions. First question, 100 points. Second, 2. Third, 3, 4, 5. Fran, you're looking puzzled. So this is how you play Jeopardy. I'm going to give you an answer, and then you have to repeat back me a question. So if I say Minister of Cedars, you would say, who is Zachary Vincent? And if you don't put it in the form of a question, you don't get it. So I'm going to read the question. First one that reads their hand, this one's worth 100 points. I'm glad Barry's not playing this first one, because the famous Unitarian transcendentalist. Alan, you got to raise your hand a little higher. What did you? 100 points. See, it's easy. 1961. Fran.
I think that's, I have to make this a question. When did the UUs and the Universalists merge?
Right. 200 points for Fran. Keep your own score, because nobody's going to remember. Okay. Current president of the UUA. Nobody knows. Barry. Oh, no. Current, excuse me. Go ahead. I'll give you another try. Okay, yeah, Barry's got it. Okay, but you're not playing, so. Okay, so we got a score of 100 and 200. This one's worth 400. I think I'm right here, but I'm happy to be corrected. Longest serving members of Cedars. Dean.
Richard Wilson. Who is Richard Wilson?
I think that's right. Richard, am I right?
No, I want the 400 too. Who is Sally Wilson?
Okay, right on. Is that true?
I think of who's here, yes.
Okay, there we go. So going in the final round, we have 600, 400, and 100. This one's worth 500. Anybody can win. Okay, principle number 7. Fran.
What is the principle that explains the interconnected web of life?
Ding, 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 ding. Fran's the winner. Okay, hold on. Don't leave. There's rewards for this. Fran gets their choice of cheese or chocolate. Lindell, Theo, and Cadbury. I hate chocolate, so I have no idea if these are good or not.
Are you giving these away from your
I'll take this one.
Yeah, I stole them from my wife. She doesn't know, so don't tell her.
Thank you.
Okay, give applause to our contestants. Thank you. Perfect. Okay, sorry, that was just a little interlude. Now I got to figure out where I am of that. So what's next? Oh, interlude, excuse me.
Good morning, everyone. This is wonderful. That was a great, awesome piano. Thank you, Nick. I want to share for the centering moment. I'll talk a little bit about myself later in the sermon, but I want to read now an excerpt from a book entitled "Too Much and Not Enough: Sacred Thoughts Said Out Loud." It's written by a friend of mine, Karen Schock, who is an ex-evangelical who deconstructed from some very harmful beliefs that she was in when she was in the movement. This is an excerpt, a shortened excerpt from a chapter. I was told not to trust myself. This is what I was taught when we were deep into evangelical Reformed theology. Nothing good in me, therefore nothing to trust. My thoughts, intellect, instinct, my heart, nope, trust none of it. Don't lean on your own understanding. But then, whose understanding do I lean on? Where do I go for wisdom? Answers to life's biggest questions. Oh, right. The scholars, the ones who know the Bible, the older men who have seminary degrees, look to the commentaries. Make sure you have the right ones. The ones we tell you to read. The versions we learned when we went to school. Stay in our lane. Listen to us and anyone else we say you can listen to. Don't go outside our evangelical circle. Stay here. Read this, not that. Listen to this podcast. Stay away from those. Talk to this person, not that one. Go to this school. Stay in our denomination. Because, of course, we are right. Even though it goes against your gut instinct, stick with us. But wait a minute. How do I know you are right? Because you're my pastor, elder, leader. I need to trust you? How does that work? You get to be trusted, but I cannot trust myself? I am so very tired. Tired of being told I cannot trust myself. Tired of being told, bring your babysitting skills, cooking skills, and decorating skills. We need that stuff. But honestly, we don't need your thoughts. So where am I now? How do I feel about it all? Here's how. It's all poppycock. God made us all with brains, with hearts and souls. He gave each one of us instinct, and more importantly, the Spirit. I no longer live in fear that God is some big old professor in the sky just waiting for me to fail a test on theology. I am no longer trying to find the right group of smart guys to hang out with so I can get a good grade. Find a different crowd, not the popular ones. No time for that, I'm afraid. And I'm realizing now the way to know God is to humbly be still and believe the love that has been put in my heart is a love put there by God. I can trust it. I can trust the part of me that longs to see goodness, the part that longs to lift others up, see the good in them, and tell them the truth about who God made them to be. Beloved, free, with a heart to love and be loved. Let us live loved, and let us trust our instinct to love one another.
Thank you, Michael. As we know, every Sunday, or most Sundays, we take some time to share our joys and sorrows. So if you have a joy, come up and briefly state your name and pour some water into the thing here. If you have a sorrow, put a stone so we can all share in that burden. the stone for all those joys and sorrows that go spoken. Next song, Ellie.
Our centering hymn, number 123, Spirit of Life. We'll just sing it once, and I invite you to stand.
So each month, Cedar holds a special collection for a group that we believe share the values that we propose. So today, we're going to be collecting donations for the Rotary Club of Bainbridge Island Uganda Well Project. And Michael was going to come up and give us a brief description of that, and then we will do the offering. So Michael?
Yeah, this is a really cool project, and I really appreciate you guys willing to support it. We have been doing this borehole well project probably for 20 years. It started, but of a very remote area of northern Uganda where villagers don't have access to clean water. And over the years, we've partnered with some aid agencies to drill wells. And also, not only that, but to train villagers in how to run a water committee, how to collect fees for water, how to maintain the wells so that they can buy the parts that they might need so that these wells will go on for decades. And the funds that we're going to collect today will go towards this year's, our next fiscal year's goal of probably doing another 4 wells with one of our Ugandan partners. So we really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. So if you'd like to receive a tax deductible for your donation, please write a check payable to UU Church with Rotary Club of Bainbridge Island in the tagline, and place in the basket, or by September 30th, send your check to Cedars. So if the ushers, Jim and Johanna, if you'd pass the offering around, that'd be great. Thank you. Thank you for your gifts.
Thank you. Well, good morning again. This is so great to be here. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I really appreciate the warm welcome you've all given me and Reverend Zachary has, and it's an honor to share the service with Mike Cox, my friend at the Rotary Club. I want to start with a story. In the 1980s, a young, naive evangelical missionary traveled to the Horn of Africa to teach the gospel of Jesus and to try to bring Muslims to Christ. He was an aid worker working for an evangelical development agency. Within a year of living in this 99% Muslim country of Somalia, he went through an experience he would never forget. He experienced universal love for all humanity, a genuine appreciation for this African culture and love for his new Muslim friends and African and fellow workers. He became bicultural. He came to understand and appreciate the African Muslim mindset, its cultural values and practices, and their unique sense of humor. Although certainly not a perfect society by any means, he sensed that God had this same powerful love for all these people. Then a terrifying thought entered his mind. My evangelical theology, he thought, says these people are going to hell unless we convert them. That doesn't make sense. Now, he knew this in theory before he came, of course. That's what the church was teaching. But now that he was there in real life, on the ground, meeting non-Christians, meeting Muslims, and getting to know them and growing to love them deeply, this did not compute. So he came to a conclusion. What he was taught and what he was told was the right translation of the Bible regarding hell it was a contradiction with this experience. It wasn't good news. So began a long road where he started deconstructing evangelical Christianity. If you're unfamiliar with that group, just think the religious right. So it didn't come very fast because he was in this movement and he liked the community. Not everything is bad in the movement, after all. So it was conflicting. But over the next 20 more years, he began to deconstruct many other harmful beliefs and discover new things, like, hey, there's mistranslations in modern Bibles in reference to the terms hell and eternal punishment. Hey, for the first 500 years of the Christian faith, the prevailing view of the early church was universalism. The belief that all will be reconciled, that despite that God does hold people accountable, all would be restored ultimately. He also eventually deconstructed other doctrines over the years, like original depravity, the belief that humanity is born depraved and incapable of doing good. You can't really trust yourself, like Karen Schock was talking about. Or the belief in substitutionary atonement, that God really can't forgive you unless Jesus takes the punishment that humanity deserves and you accept that theory of atonement or salvation. It's a transactional, violent view of salvation. Another big one was deconstructing the infallibility of the Bible and realizing, hey, those violent God narratives in the Bible, they're not necessarily true. Let's think about that. So we learned over the years that these doctrines and others were based on myths, and they were actually not part of the original path of Jesus and the early church. He also learned that passages about homosexuality in the Bible had been grossly mistranslated and misunderstood, misinterpreted, that there were actually women pastors and leaders in the early church, but there had been kind of a cover-up. Now, if you suspected this young missionary was me, you'd be right. I went through all of those things, and what that is called is deconstructing your faith, finding elements of your belief system that are harmful and dissecting them and finding a more accurate truth. Now, maybe if you consider yourself a liberal Christian, you might hear these revelations and think, well, duh, we got that. But you'd be miscalculating the power of religious misinformation and indoctrination. It's like the fake news of today. There may be a few exceptions, but people are programmed, even brainwashed, to think a certain way. So that's really a short version of my great evangelical deconstruction. And in a moment, I'll share how this is happening to millions of people. But first, I want to share a little bit more about myself. I'm a recovering conservative evangelical, which means I'm a universalist. I'm not a Unitarian, but I love Unitarians. And you can read, as Mike already did, you read my bio about my background and everything. And bear in mind, I really am a bad golfer. Of course, you've learned that I'm a Rotarian and involved in world community service. But one of the things I really love is the study of history. History, for me, when I was deconstructing evangelical theology, that really was the key to understanding a better sense of what's really going on. Because history tells us what happened in the present, what went wrong in the past, how we got to where we are in the present, and what's probably the best path for the future. I also love exploring the mysteries of life, the mystery of God, the mystery of the origin of life. You know what my biggest mystery is, though, these days? Maybe you could help me figure this out. With a handicap of 28 and rarely breaking a score of 100, why do I keep playing golf? I can't figure that one out. So what happened to me, actually, the polls tell us, is happening to millions of people. 15 to 20% of evangelicals have left the movement in recent years. Many more are in the process of deconstructing, like I was for many years, but are still in the movement and haven't left yet. There's a lot of things going on in the front door of the religious right, and it's appealing to many people. There are some good things, but there's a lot of harmful things. But in the back door, there's this exodus. People are leaving, and they're telling their stories. I'm meeting people like this all the time in my new kind of line of work now, faith deconstruction coach, helping people through this process in a support group and a workshop that I do. And I'm meeting a lot of other people who are doing the same thing. My publisher of my book is just full of the authors that we've gone through the same experience. And people are, this is a really good thing because people are discovering how to follow the love ethic of Jesus in a totally new way. And they're discovering how to practice a more authentic spirituality. Just consider it for a moment, just what people are leaving and what people are discovering. They're leaving things like religious trauma. Believe it or not, that is a thing. They're leaving sexual and spiritual abuse that's covered up in some fundamentalist type churches. Harmful doctrines like hell, the original depravity doctrine, belief in a retributive, two-faced God, fear-based faith, Bible worship, homophobia, demonizing outsiders, turn or burn teaching, not letting people express their thoughts because they're outside the supposedly right way, and believing the ends justifies the means, which in politics leads to supporting arguably the most unchristlike politicians in American history. Now consider the outcomes that ex-evangelicals are experiencing. Embracing universalism because it's historical and actually biblical. Becoming open and affirming to the LGBTQ community because it fits Jesus' love ethic. Rejecting the inerrancy of the Bible because it's not historical. Accepting women in leadership. More focus on social justice. Ending the fight with agnostics and atheists. Becoming truly inclusive. Making love for neighbor and humanity the paramount thing rather than doctrines and rigid statements of faith. In other words, maybe they're becoming a little more like Unitarian Universalists. I don't know. Oh, and my personal favorite, unlike before, they're excited about talking theology over some really good craft beer. So I want to leave you with 5 lessons or discoveries that ex-evangelicals are making that you can discover too. Some of them you've probably already discovered, but maybe this is a new way of looking at them. The first one is that history is key. We really need to know our history, because without that, we just repeat the mistakes of the past. History of our nation, history of slavery, immigration, civil rights, history of Christianity, especially early Christianity, not just the Reformation or Augustine. Learning what our modern Christian practices and beliefs, where they came from, and how the Bible was actually compiled, and then learning what matters most. This reminds me because, we think we know something, and when you don't have all the facts, you can make some mistakes. So when I was in Somalia, I was doing some language learning. And one day I went to my language helper, and he told me of a new phrase, a greeting that I thought was really cool. It was, how's your soul? Isn't that cool? Instead of saying, how are you? How's your soul? Right. Naftaka wadan. Okay. So I went out there and I practiced it, and I realized that almost everyone was laughing at me. So I went back to my language helper and I said, okay, what am I doing wrong? He says, what are you saying? And I said it, and he said, oh, you're not pronouncing it right. Well, what am I saying? He said, well, you're saying, how's your diesel fuel? Okay, all right. That's not going to work. I thought I was doing it right, but I wasn't. Sometimes we're blind to those things. The second thing is that Jesus was actually not religious. He was spiritual, but not religious. He didn't start a new religion called Christianity. That's what history teaches us. That didn't start until hundreds of years later. He didn't start or found an institutional church. It's not that all churches are bad. It's just that that's not what he started. He didn't believe in the inerrancy of the Bible. He actually critiqued the Bible, and the prophets critiqued its own Bible, the Torah. His way was not religious. It was a way of life of universal love for all, and not adhering to religious doctrines and the right codes of conduct, and etc. Sometimes those things are interesting, but they're not really the way. And actually, you can actually pursue this way of universal love outside of Christianity if you want, or inside Christianity. It's our choice. Number 3, Jesus was a universalist. We're reminded that he was a universalist. I think the story of a universalism is fascinating. Like I said, the first 500 years, it was the prevailing view in the early church, and then later on, voices like Augustine and others won out, and the doctrine of hell became the prevailing view. And that went on for centuries. But there was always a universalist stream in Western Christianity. And in the Eastern Church, it remained the prevailing view. Until finally in 1961, you know what happened. The Universalists that were still in America merged with the Unitarians to form the very congregation, the denomination behind your congregation. So this type of universalism, though, still believes that God holds people accountable. But the distinction is he doesn't do it in a retributive way. He does it in a restorative way. Ultimately, correcting people, rehabilitating people, not damning them for eternity. Number 4, Jesus called for a non-violent way of peace. Did you know that the very first Christians were pacifists? History tells us for hundreds of years. They wouldn't have even considered military service. They certainly did not hold retributive views and practices. And the nonviolent way of the first early movement was practicing what I call restorative justice. How do you overcome evil? You overcome evil with good, nonviolent resistance. That's where we got Martin Luther King's approach to civil rights, Nelson Mandela working to unite South Africa. He chose a restorative way, not a retributive way, probably averted a civil war. And so we have to keep that in mind, and that's something that I go into in my book about how to have a nonviolent path of peace. Number 5 is what actually matters most. When you kind of deconstruct all these things, you're left with what matters most, and that's restorative love and social justice. Social justice meaning empowering the poor, like this project in Uganda, empowering the oppressed, the marginalized, which includes supporting the LGBTQ community. And it's also about restorative love. What is restorative love? How does that look? And I want to share a couple of examples with you. And, my shameless plug is that I have this book, and if you want to talk to me about it afterwards, I'll be back there. There's some books back there that you can look at. But the subtitle is Exposing Myth and Violence in Popular Theology to Recover the Path of Peace. And in the book, I give a lot of examples in the second half of the book about restorative love, what it looks like, restorative justice. And one of the stories I want to share with you right now, and that's the story of Daryl Davis. Now, Daryl Davis is a black jazz musician from Massachusetts, and he would go to clubs and bars and with their group and perform. And one day, after the performance, a white guy came up to him and said, "Hey, you got great music. When are you going to be here again? I want to bring my friends." Long story short, he got into a conversation with this guy and found out that he was a leader in the local Ku Klux Klan. And this guy admitted, I actually have never sat down with a black guy and talked one-on-one. It's my first time. So over the years and months after that, Daryl Davis decided, I'm going to figure this out. Why is this guy like this? He wanted to answer one question that he posed to all these Klansmen he started to meet. And that question was, why do you hate me when you don't even know me? And so he began this journey of befriending Klansmen, even doing favors for them occasionally, but balancing that with challenging them with their racism. And he did that over and over again. And over the years, he actually influenced over 200 Klansmen to give up their robes and reject racism because of his approach. That's the restorative love approach. It's not retributive. It's challenging the evil that's there, but in a way that respects the dignity of the human on the other side. So I have other examples of stories like that. There was this Jewish couple who won over an anti-Semite. And there's this really cool story about a Muslim community who won over a Iraq war veteran who came home hating Muslims and planned to put a bomb in their mosque. And they won him over with restorative love. The guy ended up joining the mosque and becoming a leader in the mosque. A crazy story. That story, you can see that, a documentary called Stranger at the Gate, and Daryl Davis's story, you can see that in a documentary called Accidental Courtesy. So anyways, I've said enough. If you're interested in learning more about this, I'd love to talk to you. It's in the book. But I really want to encourage you that we can all discover universal love for all humanity and apply that love in practical ways to make the world a better place. All right.
This is our hymn of the month. It's our last chance at it because there is no 31st of September. So I invite you to stand.
As you're comfortable and able, if you please stand. First of all, I wanted to thank Michael again for coming today. That was great. Thank you, Michael. And thank you, Nick. very much. So if you repeat after me, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth. The warmth of community or the life of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
May we go forth from here with the knowledge we can trust ourselves, that love has already been put in our hearts, that we can tap into it, that we can freely receive it and freely give it. May we learn from history how to extend restorative justice, reject retribution and violence, discover universal love for all humanity, and apply it in restorative ways to make the world a better place. So be it.